Our New Testament passage this morning is from the Gospel according to Matthew, beginning at chapter 4, verse 1. Just as we went way forward in the Gospel last Sunday to the 17th chapter, we now are going back to very near the beginning of the Gospel, to chapter 4. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterward he was famished. The tempter came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But he answered, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, saying to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against a stone." Jesus said to him, "Again, it is written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And he said to him, "All these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me." Jesus said to him, "Away with you, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him." Then the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him. We do not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Thanks be to God. Each of us, at some point in our lives, will find ourselves in a wilderness. We will find ourselves isolated by sickness or sorrow, by oppression or depression, by time or distance. And there in that wilderness, we will probably find out who we are. Imagine this wilderness. You are a young girl. You are an African-American slave held by a wealthy plantation owner. You have none of the rights enshrined in our Bill of Rights, no right to free speech or religion or liberty or justice for that matter. You don't have the right even to your own life. Even your parents have no rights where you are concerned, unless, of course, your father happens to be your owner, which did happen occasionally. Imagine that wilderness. And now, brought to us by our own Ariana Neal, hear the story of the particular wilderness of Alberta Strauss, the property of Master Rudolph Strauss of Pin Oak Plantation of Rennes, Georgia.
When the pretty lady drove me away, I was screaming for my mama. The white lady told me that she was my mistress now, but that no harm would come to me, 'cause I'd be working in the big house kitchen with Mammy Charlotte, and that Mammy Charlotte took good care of little children like me. But I wanted my own mama, so I just listened to what my new mistress had to say. But in my head, I was planning a way to get back to my own mama. But things didn't work out like I planned. Now, I sleep in front of the fireplace with all the other little children. We all wake up at 4 in the morning, when the light is first brightening the sky. The boys get up and start the fire, while we hear the coloreds singing as they march down to the fields. Mammy Charlotte gets up and starts the breakfast cooking. Lisa May goes out and feeds the chickens and pigs, while I set the breakfast table. Then, Jonah, who is older than us, gets to eat first, 'cause he's got to do all the breakfast serving. Then, all of us have to wait until all the other white folks have eaten and left the house. Then, we eat as fast as we can so we can get on with our kitchen chores. When the master's daughter, Clemmy, is old enough, I get to be her very own personal slave, and I'll sleep at the bottom of her bed in case she needs anything. She's lots younger than me, and gets in trouble all the time. But everyone in the house, colored and white, knows there's a war, and it won't be long until it gets here. At night, we can hear the cannons and rifles off in the distance. Some of the slaves are planning to run off. Truth be told, no one knows what will happen to us. But the master, he just keeps going on like he always does, acting like nothing's happening.
Each year on the first Sunday in Lent, we read this story, the story of Jesus being tested in the wilderness. Matthew tells us Jesus is tested by tou diabolou, literally the adversary. Not tempted, mind you. Temptation is something else. This is about testing, trying. The adversary wants to know, in the end, who and what Jesus really is, what he's made of. This takes place immediately after Jesus' baptism. Remember that moment, a moment we keep returning to, a moment Barb sang about this morning, beloved. Remember, Jesus came up out of the water. The heavens were opened. God's Spirit descended like a dove. A voice from heaven spoke, saying, "This is my beloved Son. He pleases me exceedingly." But then immediately the Spirit leads Jesus to the wilderness, to this time of testing. The adversary poking and prodding and trying to find out the answer to just one question. Is Jesus really God's beloved Son? And the challenges start like this. If you are the Son of God, if you are the Son of God, how about performing just one little miracle to fill that empty stomach of yours? If you are the Son of God, how about proving it by throwing yourself off the highest tower of the temple and showing me a nice, soft landing? At that point, sensing how things are going, the adversary cuts to the chase. How about you just bow down to me and let's just take over everything ourselves, just you and me. Jesus isn't fooled. The adversary doesn't get it. For Jesus, being the Son of God means embracing the fullness of his humanity. The adversary reads him so wrong. For Jesus, it isn't about surviving in the wilderness at all costs, but about being there for us when we are in the wilderness. Alberta Strauss experienced the wilderness of chattel slavery in the United States. A brutal, soul-crushing life for anyone, but imagine what it is for a child sold away from her mother. The slave labor of at least 12 generations of Africans created enormous wealth for slaveholders. Across those same 12 generations, the children of God who were held captive paid the price in trauma and family separation and unimaginable torture and loss. Most of us in our lives won't experience a wilderness approaching anything like the one that little girl had to endure. But we will experience our own kind of wilderness, a wilderness of confusion or loss, of trauma or tedium, of addiction or paralysis. We will find ourselves outside the garden, and we may not know what hit us. My best image for Jesus in this moment, Aziraphale. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the show or the book, Good Omens, by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. It's an entirely irreverent, probably offensive, and definitely heretical story. It's about the last 2 weeks before the end of the world, as seen through the eyes of an angel and a demon who are buddies trying to make it not happen. They like Earth. Aziraphale is the angel. Here's the key to his character. He's the angel who Joan read about in the Genesis passage. He is the one God stations outside the garden when Adam and Eve have been sent off into their own wilderness. The scripture tells us God places an angel armed with a flaming, turning sword to guard the way to the tree of life. In Good Omens, Aziraphale is that angel, and he feels so sorry for Adam and Eve, he gives them the sword. It's a dangerous world out there. He wants them to be okay. That's Jesus. Here he is in the wilderness with all the power at his disposal to slide through as God's beloved child. But he is not interested in wielding power, but in giving it away. He is not interested in presto changeoing rocks into bread, but in getting down to the business of feeding the hungry people he meets along the way. He is not interested in bowing to anyone but God alone, the one who called him beloved. And he is very interested in helping us to get to know and love and serve that same God. We will all walk through the wilderness at some point, but we will never be alone there. Be not afraid. He goes before us, always. Thanks be to God. Amen.